Hello beautiful people and lovers of food. Welcome to today's bake. Today's bake is going to be my take on your traditional apple pie. My name is Vivian and I am your easy chef. My father-in-law loves apple pie, so I've decided to start a series for him called Apple Pie Fridays. So for the next 3 Fridays, I'm going to have a variation of apple pie that you guys can follow. The first bake is going to be my take on your traditional apple pie. The second bake is going to be a take on a cinnamon roll. So I'm going to make an apple pie cinnamon roll. And the third bake is going to be an apple pie baked cheesecake. I cannot wait. For today's bake, we're going to need a few ingredients. We're going to use some apples with some cinnamon. We're going to use some flour, some sugar, some butter and some eggs. And then we're going to use some cream because everything is just better with cream. The first thing I am going to do today is I'm going to make a sweet pastry. It's a Pate Sucre if you want to do the French thing, but for all our normal people, just a sweet pastry. And what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to get a bowl, put in some butter and some sugar and cream it together. What I've done is I've cut the butter into smaller blocks. All I have is a whisk and a little bit of effort and we'll get it creamed together the old-fashioned way. It's going to be a little bit hard in the beginning, but you'll get there eventually with a little bit of patience. And don't mind using your hands. Your hands are your biggest tool in the kitchen. So as long as they're clean, I don't see a problem. And you'll see as it keeps going, it'll start getting smaller, less sugar, and soon we'll be able to mix it like normal. As you can see, it's getting lighter now. It's a lot less granular. And this is sort of the stage where you can start adding your egg yolks to incorporate those into the batter. So here are my 2 egg yolks. I've already separated them. I'm going to do it one at a time just because it is easier and less sloppy if you do it one at a time. And once it's fully incorporated, you can add your last egg yolk. So now, what we can do is we can cut our flour into our butter. And what you want to do here is you don't want to mix it. Mixing it will activate the gluten inside the flour. What you want to do is you want to cut it in. You almost want it to make fine little crumbs of butter and flour so that when you roll out your pastry later, it's nice and flaky. What I'm going to get is I'm going to get 2 knives to cross action, sort of like, imagine your Wolverine. Cross action through the butter, through the flour, not giving it a stir, we're only cutting it into the flour. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring it to a point where we're happy, we say it looks crummy, and then we're going to gently bring it together with our hands. We can start bringing our dough together. You'll see it might be a little bit stiff, but that's fine. We're going to put it in the fridge and we're going to let it rest because it's tired. No, that's a terrible joke. And then you can wrap it and we can put it in the fridge. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some apples, cut them into cubes. We're going to stew them. So we're going to put them in with some sugar, some cinnamon, maybe a few other spices. If you have, I'll make some recommendations. Yeah, I cut my apples into cubes, about 1 to 2 centimeters thick. I'm going to make a bit of a simple syrup, almost like a basic caramel, and then I'm going to put my apples into it. So we're going to start off with sugar, water, and we're going to let that boil a little bit. We're going to add some butter, add our apples, add our cinnamon, and it's going to be yum. So you put your sugar and your water in first. Once it starts bubbling and it starts turning a little bit of a golden brown color, we're going to add our butter in and our apples in. And then maybe a splash of cream if we feel like it. My sugar is nice and bubbly and I'm going to add my butter to it now. It's going to be a very loose caramel. If you want your caramel to be a bit stiffer, You can always wait for it to go a little bit further, but I know when I add my apples, there's going to be a lot of liquid. It'll cook out with the liquids in the apples. So now you can see once you add your butter, it goes all nice and bubbly, and you can smell, it starts smelling more like a caramel and less like a sugar. That's all the butter doing its thing. Okay, our caramel is starting to turn a little bit brown, so we're going to add just a bit of cream, because we don't want this to be too thick. We don't want this to be a proper toffee. We want it to be a sauce. And then we're going to add our apples. If you do this too quickly, it could also shock your sugar. So do it a little bit at a time, give it a stir, a little bit more, give it a stir. And there's also a lot of liquid in the apple, so you'll see your sauce starts getting quite liquidy. So now that our apples are in our pot, we can also now add our spices. So I'm just going to use cinnamon and vanilla. Vanilla, I feel like, is the baseline of baking spice, and then the cinnamon to just lift it and give it that wholesome taste. I find these spoons really handy because they are narrow and fit into spice jars. So whoever did this, thank you for your service. Maybe a little bit more. There's quite a lot of apples in here. That looks great. I'm excited. And it smells great. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the heat off, and I'm going to just leave these apples here. They can cool down, they can do what they need to do. So we're going to do our tart shell now. We're going to blind bake it, which means we're going to bake it without any filling in before we put our filling in. This helps keep the tart shell nice and crisp. Just going to keep adding flour as I go along so that it doesn't stick to the surface of our counter. And it will be a bit hard now because the butter has got hard in the fridge, but you can feel that the actual pastry is a bit more pliable than earlier. This is also one of those nice types of pastries where if there is a crack or a bit of a break in your shell, you can patch it up really quickly and easily. It doesn't affect your pastry very much at all. You want to try get it nice and thin, but also be reasonable with yourself. You still have to pick it up. So I think this side we're good. This side we might just go down a little bit further. Now we've got some pastry overhanging here. It's a good thing. It just means you've rolled out your pastry nicely. Some people like to bake with a little bit of extra hanging over so that when the pastry shrinks, which it often does, it actually doesn't impact the dish so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to make sure it's all nice in all the corners. And then I'm going to get my scissors. Now, you don't have to cut neat here because at the end of the day, you're not going to see this. This is going to be just your little safety hook that once it comes out the oven for the last time, you're going to break off. Now we're going to do our blind baking. And basically all this is we're putting an egg wash onto our tart shell. And we're poking a couple of holes in it so that it doesn't puff up too much, so we still have space for our filling. And then we're going to put it in the oven to cook. Now you don't have to be fancy when you poke the holes. You can really just go to town. You don't have to look. This is going to be the barrier between your wet ingredients later, or your wet filling that you put in, and your nice crispy tart shell. So this is an important step, and a lot of people like to skip it. I do not. So what I'm going to do before I bake this is I'm just going to stick it in the fridge for 5 more minutes, and then it'll be in the oven for 50. If you guys could be here and just smell how good it smells in here, you would make noises. Speaking of things that are wonderful, I would like to take this moment to thank Westpac Lifestyle for sponsoring my channel. They have been wonderful in providing bowls, dishes, baking tins, measuring spoons. Everything I've used today has been sponsored by Westpac. So if there's something that you see here that you like, you know where to go. Our apple pie tart shell is ready to come out the oven. Amazing. So we've got our apple pie filling that we had earlier. You'll notice that it's not particularly thick and that we're going to rectify now. So what we do is we take a little bit of cornstarch and a little bit of cream and we mix it together and we put it in the pot. So I'm going to put my cornstarch in. And then you're just going to stir. You're going to stir until you see it starting to thicken up. So while this waits for us to put it in our tart shell, we're going to quickly just roll out the lattice work that we're going to put on top of our pastry. So I've got the leftover pastry from earlier and a little bit of flour, and we're going to roll it out and we're going to make a bit of lattice work on top of our pie. So what's nice about the lattice stuff is once you've made a strip, you can always make it shorter. Okay, now comes the part where you got to do the lattice. So I generally start in the middle. So what I've done is I've used my cookie cutter just to make a few little stars. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these stars along the edge of my pie just to neaten it up. Just going to use a little bit of egg wash as I go. So I'm going to put a little bit of egg, put a little star, put a little egg, put a little star. And this really is optional. It's just to make it look a little bit fancier. I'm just going to brush it with an egg yolk or an egg wash. This one is still the leftovers from when I made this pastry. And it's just going to give it a nice shine in the oven. So we're going to bake it until the top is nice and golden brown. I can't wait to taste. So we're going to leave that there at 180 degrees for about 5 to 10 minutes or until the pastry is nice and golden brown on top. I know you can't smell, but if you could, you'd know that this smell is worth a like. So please hit the like button, hit the bell, and give a comment if you'd like to see more. Oh, and don't forget the most important one. Please subscribe because the smell is worth it. Ooh. Look at that. That looks wonderful. So, our apple pie is out the oven and it looks amazing. It's lovely golden brown. Are you ready to cut it? Because I am. Ooh, that looks amazing. And there we have it, apple pie. More traditional, more run-of-the-mill. But next week, we're going to try something different. We're going to try apple pie cinnamon buns. And I can't wait. Oh, that crispy tart shell. That is delicious. There is a reason why this pie has been around for centuries, and it's because it is so good. Guys, you gotta try. Yeah. It's just the best. You can't go wrong with apple pie. Apple pie is just amazing. Thank you guys for watching. This is the first out of 3 apple pie Fridays. We're going to do apple cinnamons, we're going to do apple cheesecake. We're just going a little bit crazy with apple. But that's okay. We'll go crazy with other things as well. I cannot wait to show you more. Stay delicious, beautiful people.